Sports bras. Sports bras? Sports bras. Hey there, it's Lykos and welcome back to my channel. I'm not in my room today because the lighting was terrible for no apparent reason. So, yeah, different background. I'm in my lounge instead. This week's video I wanted to talk about something that has been asked of me by a few people, and that is pre-testosterone passing tips for female to male trans people. And, I have to say, I did the complete opposite of some of the things that I would suggest for people. And I didn't always pass. I did at some points, other points it was a little more obvious that I was on the other side of things. But yeah, I think I've learned from my mistakes more than anything, and as well as looking up some suggested things from friends and stuff I was told to do. I've compiled a list of some things you can do. So I'm gonna start with the more obvious ones. Things like shopping in the guys section for clothes, or, you know, finding gender neutral clothing for like things like t-shirts. If you are of a heavier build, you got a little bit more weight on you, do not buy anything fitted. In fact, don't buy anything fitted in general, I would suggest, because that will fit a particular form which you won't necessarily fill out, or will make your things like your curves and your hips stand out a bit more if you've got the weight there. So it's one of those things that you do kind of have to be careful about, but also don't wear anything that's too baggy or too long, because if it hangs over things like your butt, it's going to make your butt stick out and stuff like that, so it's going to push out some areas you may not want to be seen. So buying things from the guys section if you can, or unisex t-shirts and stuff like that that aren't fitted, is a good way to go. On the topic of things you wear, jewelry, try to wear like maybe one necklace and a wristband or something like that if you do like wearing jewelry, or a few rings if you like me. I always wear rings on one hand. If you have piercings, stick with your basic colored ones. If you want to wear color, wear things like titanium, or even things like acrylic and like tongue piercings, or stick with your stainless steel or plain titanium colors. They appear quite masculine. And if you want piercings and you want more masculine piercings, things like lip piercings and eyebrow piercings tend to look quite masculine if you're looking for ideas. Deodorant, if you can't buy, here's a big thing, if you're not out or you're not comfortable shopping in the guys section in public, buy deodorant that isn't scented. You can get female deodorant or supposedly unisex deodorant that's in the girls section. It can be found in the guys section too, but it's non-scented and it won't leave you with like a floral after smell that a lot of the female, like predominantly female used ones do, and I think that helps a lot. And if you can't buy a man's like body spray, there is a brand here, I'm pretty sure it's elsewhere, like I'm pretty sure it's everywhere, called Lykos, that does a for her thing. It doesn't particularly smell feminine, it's just like a Lynx that smells like a Lynx that's slightly less masculine. And I think if you're not allowed to buy a guy's body spray, that is a good idea, because it's by a company that predominantly makes male body spray. And things like not buying scented body wash and stuff like that, just, you know, even just like plain coconut or vanilla, or just general soap bar, stuff like that, are probably the best, so you don't end up with like a floral scent to you, which isn't that masculine. Your facial structure, pre-testosterone, is not very masculine, generally. Some people are very lucky, and my god, I wish I was one of them. But what I did is you can clench your jaw to make it appear more square, but I would not suggest doing that for long periods of time, because I dislocated my jaw several times doing that. It wasn't a good idea. But you can do things like chew gum, which will strengthen the muscles in your jaw. And if you want to experiment with things like contouring with makeup, go for it. It can make you appear more masculine, but if you're not comfortable with that, like, that's very understandable. Not a lot of people are, but that is also an option for you if you're not sure how to make your jawline appear more square. Haircuts, something I did to begin with was I shaved my head. I think I got like a 1 on the sides, and then I had this like awkward mop thing on top that I had no idea what I was doing with, so I just wore hats until it grew out. But yeah, that's what I did to begin with, because it was a more masculine version, because I have very long hair to begin with. So I just shaved it all off, basically, and then it grew out, and it's just been growing since then, and I've just had it cut short to about here since. And yeah, but it does, I do suggest, unless you're in the alternative scene, you don't get a haircut like mine, or don't leave a large amount of hair, like don't have a lot of hair, and don't overstyle it, leave it quite messy. I know things like quiffs do require you to style them, but leave it like a messy style, don't go above and beyond, because it's very masculine to have, you know, an almost natural looking. Onto your voice. There are apps out there that can help you like deepen your voice, or even if you're going the other way or you want to be more gender neutral, there are apps that can heighten the pitch of your voice. But if you do things like sing, I wouldn't suggest these apps, because apparently they can mess that up for you. What I would suggest doing is, if you're not in a situation that requires you to talk loudly, if you lower your pitch of your voice, as in your tone, how loud you are, your voice will sound deeper naturally, and that's what I did quite a lot. I just spoke very quietly. It got quite annoying for some people because they had to constantly ask me to repeat myself, but worth it. A lot of the time your voice isn't a big giveaway, you just look a lot younger than you are. When I first came out and I went back to school, I was in year 12, I was 16 going on 17, and I was in mufti because the school was uniformed up until year 12, so it was very obvious that I was not, you know, younger than I was, so that was the main giveaway with my voice. So unless you're in a situation like that, you probably won't have an issue. But if you do have this dysphoria about your voice, lowering your voice's sound can make your voice sound deeper. There are apps out there if you do want to try that. I never tried it, I didn't use it. I don't know what it's like, but I've heard some good things about some of them. So those can work for people. Another thing I want to get into in this video is your diet. There are foods out there that have naturally high levels of testosterone in them, or will produce high levels of testosterone in your body if you eat them. Got a list here. So some natural testosterone boosting and estrogen blocking foods you can try. Some boosters are tuna, egg yolks, oysters, shellfish, garlic, coconut, beef and beans. So red meat is a testosterone booster. And some estrogen blockers are things like kale, cauliflower, broccoli, mushrooms, whole grains, pomegranates, grapes, olive oil, spinach, onions and citrus. That's just some of the things I've found on this website before I filmed this video. There are plenty others out there if you do a little bit of research. But yeah, I am a vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. I haven't for a while. So things like diet weren't something I was, you know, really doing much of, eating things like red meats, but I did eat a lot of eggs and stuff like that at first when I first went vegetarian, so that was my testosterone boosters. And I do eat a lot of green vegetables, which can be estrogen blockers, just depends on what you eat. So diet is a huge part of that if you're wanting to naturally raise your testosterone levels. Body language is a really, really important thing. If you bind, you're going to naturally slouch because of the pressure it puts on your back. Try to avoid doing that. If you catch yourself slouching, put your shoulders back, your chest out, and sit straight. It appears more masculine. You've got more of a square body shape then. When you walk with slightly wider stance. Unless you've got quite a masculine walk, this tip won't help much. But if you do walk quite femininely, if your hips sway a lot naturally and stuff like that, then trying to have a wider step stance can help with that quite a lot. Yeah. Another thing I don't do, because I do this particular thing a lot, and that's talk with your hands. It suggests that you don't talk with your hands as much on this website, and do it less with your wrists and more with your whole arm type thing. I use my hands a lot when I talk, and I normally just have my elbow resting on my knee, and I do it like that. So I'm not the best example for that. But yeah, and another thing is when you're walking, if you've got pockets, hands in pockets, it's quite masculine looking. And if you're standing still and you cross your arms, try not to cross them too low, try to cross them higher up, apparently is a good thing. I never did that. Back onto clothes, masculine clothing, rolling up your sleeves of t-shirts a little, or like long sleeves, rolling them up to about here sometimes is quite good. Not wearing anything that's really droopy at the sides here if you're wearing a singlet, because then you'll see things like binders, or if you tape, and wearing stuff that's a little oversized but not majorly, so it doesn't hang over things that you don't want to be showing, but it does allow you to give the space for binders that don't show. As you can see, if I pull mine down, you can see my binder, but if I wear it normally, you can't see it, and there's enough of a gap down here so that the binder edge doesn't show. Muscle tank tops are a good idea, but again, try to avoid things that hang really low down, because you don't particularly, a lot of people don't want their binders to show, because that can be a giveaway to them. If you go swimming, I can't swim, fun fact, I don't know how to swim. But yeah, if you go swimming, I'm reading this off this thing because I've never had to use this before. I went swimming at the beginning of the year. I literally stood in the water and sat down because we were at a river, and that was about as much as I did in the water. So it wasn't that big of a deal for me, but it suggests that you get board shorts with a wide waistband, and rashis if you, which is a material t-shirt made for swimming. If you wear sports bra, forwards or backwards, don't try wearing two, as that would be constricting under a rashi. Binder, wear an oversized rashi over top to hide curves, and the binder itself. I'm not going to talk about hips because I've already spoken about that a little bit. I'm not going to talk about height because there are cis guys out there who are shorter than me, and I'm not exactly tall. I'm about 5'5", so there are cis guys that I know personally who are shorter than me, so that's not really that big of an issue. Just say you're naturally short. And I'm not going to talk about packers because I've never packed in my life and I don't really know how it works. Yeah, I just feel like I'm a little bit inexperienced to be talking about that particular part of it when I don't do that myself. But I am going to talk about binders. I saved this to sort of last because it's a very important thing. Do not bind with shit that is not meant to bind with. Don't bind with ace bandages or duct tape or anything that's going to go right around here in a complete circle that isn't listed on a transitional website. Because it's very dangerous. They can kill you, for one. They can also do permanent damage to your ribs. You can crack your ribs, you can bruise your ribs, you can break ribs, you can puncture your lungs. There's all this shit that can happen from unsafe binding. If you have to do a binding thing that is not a proper binder, and you can't get KT tape because you're of a bigger chest, wear a sports bra that, one, is your size. Take the padding out, obviously, a lot of people would, and then wear one backwards that's a size down, and you take the padding out of that as well, and it will act like a binder. And as far as I'm aware, that's perfectly safe to do. It's been tested. But if you're gonna buy binders, buy from proper, like, registered and accepted companies, things like GC2B and Underworks, and there's a few others out there. just do a quick Google search on trans binders and you will get like tons of sites that will give you listed safe binders to use. I personally have owned GCTB and Underworks binders. Both are amazing, but I do prefer Underworks. I have about 6 Underworks binders because I do wear them every day. But do follow the rules. Don't bind for longer than you're supposed to. I think it's 8 to 12 hours depending on your chest size or something like that. Don't buy a size down in your binders. It's not going to help you bind flatter. It's going to damage you. Do not ever sleep in a binder. And yeah, that's basically the main rules of binding. I have damaged my ribcage from binding incorrectly. I bound with ribbon for I think 13 hours at once, and I've also binded with a binder for too long. And I have 2 pushed-in ribs on one side of my rib cage. They sit about this far down compared to the rest of them, and you can physically see it. If you push on my rib cage, you can feel it. If you pull down and you flatten the skin in the area, you can literally see the difference in height. All of these things that I have to, and it does cause a lot of pain. Doesn't mean I can't bind as long as I want to be able to. I have to take my binder off as soon as I start getting chest pains in case I do any further damage. Or if it gets too uncomfortable. If you get pains in your chest, take the binder off. Right now. Right then. As soon as it gets painful, take it off. And the same goes for if you can't breathe properly and all those other things. Bearing in mind your breathing will have to be monitored. You will have to be very self-aware of your breathing while binding, because you can't breathe normally if you're binding, you know, as well as you can. And don't double bind. I double binded for a while. Don't do it. It's not a good idea. It hurts after a while, and you can seriously bruise your skin. I think my skin went black for like a week because I binded for too long, double binding. It's not a good idea. And finally, I'm going to talk about bathrooms. I know there are certain areas in America right now that you do not want to be going into bathrooms that you don't feel like you can pass well enough to be in. I get that. And if you're in those areas, I'm sorry, I don't really know what to say other than try and find a disabled toilet that's gender neutral. But if you're anywhere else, just go in and come out. A lot of people, unless they really are like the biggest assholes you can find, will give a shit that you're just trying to piss. Some people have packers that allow them to stand to pee, or STPs for short, that allow them to use urinals. I don't. I go into a cubicle, I lock the door, I pee, and then I leave. I've never had an issue with that, but I do prefer to use gender-neutral toilets or disabled toilets because I prefer to be in an area where no one else is around. And that's just a personal preference. And we have them in my local malls and stuff like that, and I generally don't leave my house outside of that. And we have one at my college, so I'm good. But for those of you that want to be using masculine bathrooms and you feel like, or man's bathrooms, and you feel like you're passing well enough with your appearance, just go in, do your business and come out. People generally won't take notice of you unless they're like having a full-on stare at you. That generally doesn't happen in bathrooms unless they're like really weird. But yeah, you should be fine to just go in and come out. I don't think there will be any issue there. Just brave it, I'd say, and do it. You will feel much better about yourself having done it than always talking yourself out of it. That is where I'm going to leave today's video. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you yourself have any passing tips for anybody, leave them in the comments. That could help someone out quite a lot. I will leave a link to all my social media in the description box below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Stay you, stay awesome. Don't be afraid to be yourself, and never forget to smile.